Dan Rothenberg and Joe Klosik, two guys trying to figure it out. Not the right wing, not the brosphere. Left of center, with humor and empathy.
What internet are you using today?
I'm using my foot doctor's internet. I'm at my office. The internet was... This has been a day of... You ever have a day of, like... this is more of a home ownership thing.
So I wouldn't get it.
You wouldn't get it.
I wouldn't understand.
Everything falls apart at once. So today, I wake up, the house is in a general mess. My internet's just not working. It's not connecting to our devices. The front panel to our air conditioning falls off, exposing a bunch of wires in chaos. You know, I can't stand the chaos. And there's that general smell, that Dave Attell, find the smell. There's a rotting something.
Somewhere something is rotting.
Yes, rotting.
And you hope it's not you.
Yes, I would. No, I wish it was me and I could shower. It's just the general. Sometimes you're just like, it's all a piece of shit.
Yeah. That is the David Tell joke. You ever play the game in your apartment, find the smell,
right,
and you hope it isn't you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, buddy.
But I guess so. But however, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm having some. I'm resilient. I got here and I realized, okay,
nice.
I live so close to my office that I'm having the same internet issues. Yet, I said, I remember when I used to steal from the foot doctor's internet, and here we are. So thank you. So we need to sponsor. We should give him a plug.
Give a shout out to Dr.
Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Tillett, the foot doctor. If you're in Hillsdale and your tootsies stink, come to Dr. Tillett.
Have you been kicking too much ass? Is your foot hurting? Come to Dr. Tilldale. Not only will he look at your foot, he's got good internet.
Yes, good internet, pretty good magazines. If your arch is flat and you're feeling low, come to Dr. Tillett, and he'll give it a go.
Ooh, well, bravo.
All right.
Well, everything's great here,
let's
buddy.
Cut the shit.
Let's cut the shit.
I realize today is your day, right?
It is, but if you got something
I
burning...
got a quick grievance, in and out in 5 minutes, all right?
Yeah.
I go
more than you've already explained.
Yes. Okay. So I go to my son's science night.
Oh.
At school. Okay, we're in the auditorium. They're kind of explaining the ground rules. I don't mean to brag. My son got a scholarship to a school. Every time we have one of these things, it involves Danish and coffee. I'm in a good mood. Joe. To my left, I see one of the parents with a tote bag. I got no problem with that, all right? And on it, it says, in my vision, I'm minding my own business, Joe. And sitting there in my vision is her little insignia, kind of a homemade thing, on her tote bag that says, Dykes for Palestine.
Is that bad, Dan?
We got to unpack it for a second.
We're unpacking the tote.
Okay, so first of all, let's start with dykes.
Oh my God!
I mean, let's start with that, okay? Because I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. I am a liberal, progressive guy. I am beyond an ally to the LGBTQ community. In fact, I think I have a new term for me. From my 20s, I'm an ally with benefits. Is that a thing?
I think it is a very undiscussed thing. Yes.
I have benefited the LGBTQ.
It's been a mutual.
You name it, I've benefited it. Okay,
You've probably held that tote bag or tote bag.
I have been an advocate for. Okay, so I'm not. In other words, I'm not just what I. There's more to me than it appears. Now, that being said, I'm also Jewish. And in my mind, I've been kind of ruminating over what is it that pissed me off so much. And I'm going to go feelings first. And I'm not saying I'm right. But bottom line, I feel like it's not that you can't wear whatever tote bag you want. First of all, it's sort of very Portland weird cool. Dykes for Palestine. If you're going to potentially make people uncomfortable, get to the point. What's your point? do you know? So, if it had said, end aggression in the Gaza Strip, fine, okay? You're getting me a little riled up when I'm at my son's thing, but that's saying something. Dykes for Palestine, you might as well be saying dykes against Israel. In a sense, I don't know. Here's what I'm getting at. Okay, is that the third time I've said here's what I'm getting at without?
Yeah, I'm not. But who's counting? Who's counting?
Here's what I'm getting at. As a Jewish person,
yeah,
I am a liberal Jewish person, meaning I am not for outright aggression or unconditional support for Israel, whatever they do. It's a difficult, nuanced discussion. I am not a fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. I think he is part of the problem that created, put us where we are today. That being said, here's what I want to communicate about being Jewish. And I'm not, if I was speaking for all Jews, I apologize. This is the Splain. I'm going with what
you're going
is in my gut.
Yeah, get it out.
When you talk about as a Jew, and I think I speak for a number of Jews in America. It's not that I'm for liberal. It's not that I'm for Israel's strength, as much as I'm concerned about the elimination of Israel, and that's where we tend to be coming from, and that's where you're speaking out against Israel. That is where the trigger comes from. The fact that we have a history, and the history is real.
Yeah.
And I think people tend to look and go, well, Jews, you guys have arrived, and you're now part of aggression. You are now successful and aggressive, and Jewish feelings aren't what they used to be. You know? We tend to be looked at as coming from a place of privilege, but there was also a time where we apparently were privileged and successful, and it was gone like that. And that's real. That the Holocaust is very real to us. It happened 55, 65, 80-ish
80 years ago. Yeah.
80 years ago. My grandmother escaped the Nazis, and I remember my grandmother. And that history is real within us.
I totally respect all that.
And it's coming from it's visceral. It's coming from a place. I mean, look at it, Joe. We have you've heard of matzah, right?
As in the soup and the bread and the cracker.
Matzah is unleavened bread.
Right.
Because we had to split. Okay, we're eating half-cooked food. That is.
Yeah, but you know that
we
happened.
Had to flee.
You know that happened like 4,000 years ago.
Whatever. You gonna start with that?
I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like, there's other food choices.
That's our culture. I'm talking about our culture. That's literally a recipe. Half a cup of flour, half a cup of water. Run.
Yeah.
Do you understand me?
Does it say that in the recipe book? Run.
Go. They're coming. I mean that. The point is, I'm sitting here at my son. The point is, again, what's the point?
It's all right. What is the point,
sitting at
Dan?
my son's thing.
You're triggered. You don't like it.
And I feel like, is it worth it? You 30-something white person who may or may not...
Did you talk to her?
No. And I'll get to that. You 30-something white person that may or may not have any skin in this game or really understand what this is all about. I am not saying Israel is perfect, and I'm not saying I am happy necessarily with Israel right now or the politics in Israel. But when you express yourself against Israel, it's triggering. And so make it count. Say something. Dikes for Palestine. So this is how it hits me. And I might be right or wrong.
Yeah.
It hits me as,
Yeah.
okay, you're like I was when I was 18. You're flashing your cool, liberal, progressive sign.
Mm-hmm.
And without really considering how much good is it doing compared to how I'm agitating that Jew over on the couch. And it strikes me as a little rude and inconsiderate and thoughtless.
It's
And I'm not saying you don't have the right to say it. So, for instance, I assume you're a lesbian because you're a dyke. Right? Is that too much?
No.
Okay. Am I... So the equivalent, kind of, to me, is, let's say I'm walking around with, I don't know, like a Citizens United kind of, I love the nuclear family, right? Something like that.
Okay.
That's...
Or maybe just a Joe Rogan T-shirt at a lesbian rally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine, I would like to think I would keep in mind, am I saying something? Am I really saying something important here? Do I have a solution in what I'm saying? Because I'm going to upset some people, and they're just trying to attend their kid's science night. And it's a place of education for your kid. So you're reminding me, my kid is going to this school, and yes, there's Danish and coffee. So,
let's not forget.
but
the
he's
Danish
also
and
going to
coffee.
maybe feel a little alienated as a Jew, and so that's just something to keep in mind.
Sure.
You might be looking at Jews like have no problems anymore, and I admit we can write a good sitcom. You put us in a writer's room, we got some skills. However, we feel vulnerable.
Sure.
And history tells us we have a right to feel vulnerable. That's all I'm saying. All right, Joe.
You feel better now?
I feel better, and it's a lot to unpack, and I'm not saying I'm right.
It is a lot to unpack, and at the risk of going deep on this, I think you have a right to all of those feelings.
Yes.
I think also one thing that I have noticed, and I will try to stay as aloof on this. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is fascinating to notice is there's definitely been a generational shift.
Yeah.
In how people think of Israel.
Yes.
And I remember, you didn't criticize Israel. Mm-hmm. To criticize Israel was to criticize Jews.
Right.
To criticize Jews was anti-Semitic. And that held sway, I think, for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that was predicated definitely on the Holocaust, definitely on the founding of modern Israel and the battles that had to be won just for the state of Israel to be there, right? And it makes sense. It makes sense. I think this generation that doesn't have that, let's call it baggage, maybe that's not a fair term, but doesn't, they don't have that history, they don't have that awareness, they don't have that experience growing up with it. They are seeing what's happening to the Palestinian people, which I also think is very important to denote. There's Palestinians and there's Hamas, and the Palestinians have protested against Hamas, which doesn't get covered a lot, but there is definitely some tension there. They know that they're not happy, and I think this generation is like, listen, we understand. I mean, I'm not defending.
I hear you.
This, you know what I mean? But there are
Splain.
like and explain it away. And the thing that is also fascinating that I think gets lost on a lot of Americans, not just Jewish Americans, but Americans, period. When you look at Israeli polls about the government and what's being done in their name, it's virtually a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Like half of Israel is like, look, we do not like what is being done. And there's plenty of very prominent Israeli thought leaders that are saying like, listen, this is not doing us any favors. And I think that for this generation, they're looking at that. And it is difficult to balance everything. But yeah, I also can see on Facebook, I have many friends who are Jewish, and there was that attack recently in Boulder, Colorado, where this Egyptian immigrant was throwing Molotov cocktails at Jewish people, just having a very peaceful protest, just to say like, hey, we're here. And that scares the hell out of Jewish people, and I totally get that. I really do believe, though, talking about this is so difficult and the emotions are so strong, and I really would encourage everyone, you have to be willing to get into the nuance. Criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic. Just like we criticize the American government, but we're not against America, right? Saying like, hey, maybe the Palestinians deserve better is not defending Hamas terrorism. And that is difficult, and I think it gets lost. And then when you boil it down, to slogans like dikes for Palestinians, that's going to press a lot of buttons. I mean, just saying Palestinian is a button that is gonna get pressed, and then putting it in the context of dikes for Palestinians, like where is it's really, really difficult. And I'll be honest with you, I have not felt particularly courageous as an individual because I've not put an opinion out there, and people have even said like, how come you're not talking about this? You're very opinionated about other things. And I'm like, man, that is an issue that it carries so much emotional weight. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not jumping into it. I've got enough on my personal plate. Right. And,
when you and I talked about doing this podcast, I think I said to you, that's the one thing I don't want to get into.
Yeah.
It's too... But I think you're hitting on something very important. We got to have nuanced discussions, and I did not approach her, and maybe I should have. Because it's too.
Yeah.
I don't. I have a little. A little bias against. How can I? But I don't want to. I don't want to have a conversation, and suddenly I'm put in a light where I'm being oppressive, or I'm appearing to be a bully when I'm really just trying to have a conversation, and suddenly someone is saying to me, "You're going to tell me what to put on my bag?"
Exactly. Exactly. Right. It can get ugly.
And
really
to be honest with you, the fact that she would walk around with something like that tells me you're probably not discussing it with nuance. But I'm being judgmental, and maybe
that comes from a very, very, who knows, that putting that on a bag might come from a very considerate, highly thought out, I don't know. I mean, it is interesting though to think like, I've told jokes that were very, very anti-Republican, anti-MAGA in front of crowds that I knew weren't going to appreciate it, just to like, but on purpose.
We're at school. We're at school, and I really believe in a certain neutrality at school. We're creating a neutral place for kids to learn everything and form opinions. There was stuff with I don't want to make the whole episode about this. Portland Public Schools was on strike for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had teachers with their strike signs attaching Palestinian advocacy to it. So I'm not just a teacher on strike. I'm pro. But I don't think they should mix in that way. I don't think adults should walk around with their opinions. You teach kids how to form an opinion. In order to do that well, you keep yours kind of out of it. You have students attending school.
Can I just point something
out
to you, though?
Space.
It is. It is a safe space, right? I'm thinking how to explain this.
Explain it.
So
Don't think,
it's
explain.
Okay. Everything that you're saying about how you feel and you don't think that message should show up in school is a lot of what conservatives say about gay, lesbian, and trans messages showing up in school, right? They think like keep that away from the kids. All right? It's neutral. We don't want to bring those kind of political messages and opinions to school. So it's hard. I think but at the same time, I'm also agreeing with you that it's like, look, if you're going to protest, for God's sakes, just stick to the message. You're a teacher.
Right.
You want better pay. That's your sign. But
Okay.
that's a very liberal thing. Like, hey, I'm going to protest. What are you protesting today? Everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to dress as a sea turtle. And I'm also going to show a sign that says I am against Trump. And I'm
Okay.
going to give the finger to anybody who has a red hat.
I'm with you. Now, first of all, I think we're talking about two different things. I hear what you're saying. And let me unpack this in my own brain. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, in order to allow for a full education, teachers should keep their views and opinions out of it, while teaching a fully inclusive, teaching about African American history, LGBTQ history, everything, the truth, the reality of
The
history.
truth and the reality.
Right, without taking a side as a teacher.
Yeah, but don't you think like, and I'm not talking about Palestine, Israel. I think it's very hard for any human being to dispassionately and objectively teach any kind of truth, right? And when we're talking about
Right, but
current
here's
political
where
situation,
here's where the truth comes in. Truth, not
Okay.
opinion. This happened to black people. This happened to LGBTQ. There was Stonewall. There was the
Yeah,
Oklahoma
yeah.
City,
Right, right.
Tulsa
But
massacre. These
wouldn't-
things happened, and this was the repercussions. That's not an
Right.
opinion. That's true.
No, that's true. But wouldn't a Palestinian person, right, who's been on the side of what's happened lately, wouldn't they say my truth is, you know, my family
Right.
got killed, we were bombed,
And then
we tried to get
everybody
food."
gets to discuss their truth and learn and grow. But as a teacher, you don't
Let me ask you
discuss.
this.
You don't discuss your opinion and your
Could it-
subjective truth, because then certain students will feel alienated.
What if the teacher had a sign, you know, that was out there protesting and had the LGBTQ rainbow on it? Mm-hmm. Should that be allowed?
I would say this is. I don't know about allowed. Okay, this is what I would say. Okay, I would say, God. Personally, I love it. Makes me feel good, but perhaps I don't think I wouldn't do that if I were you. I wouldn't
Okay.
attach my stuff onto this. I would stay in my lane for this particular event
Let's just focus on one thing.
and
yeah.
be on strike, because that's what
Yeah.
this is about. So,
Right.
for instance, when I worked at Lincoln High School as a school-based therapist, and I remember walking in and seeing LGBTQ flag and seeing Black Lives Matter and seeing this. I personally was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" I'm so proud of students, and this feels good. Now the question is, if it was a Blue Lives Matter thing. Now I don't want to get into conflating black and blue and how that
No, I know.
doesn't
I know
add
what
up
you're saying.
anyway.
I know what you're saying.
But I sort of feel like, bottom line, no matter what our truths are, these are divisive things right now, and I'm not sure. I have a problem with the fact that a student with any kind of upbringing, with any kind of belief, is going to walk into public school and instantly learn this kind of isn't the place for them.
Right.
Now, it's a nuanced conversation, because I think the notion of Blue Lives Matter is not correctly diagnosed compared to Black Lives Matter.
But
It's a
but
whole.
you're making the point.
But
Yeah.
you see the point.
I see the point.
Sometimes let's keep it in our lane. so people can focus on the task at hand.
This actually might all dovetail very nicely into
All right.
the subject that I wanted to
Okay.
to bring up today
What do we
anyway. So I think this hits very much at our Splain ethos, right? The idea that liberals maybe, they could take things too seriously. They lack a sense of humor. And then, also I
Yes.
think liberals need to own the fact that maybe we are alienating and pushing people away sometimes. So it's been in the news lately. The Democratic National Convention, right, has spent something like $20 million to conduct this thing called SAM, Speaking with American Men. And the reason why they're doing this huge scientific survey is, surprise, surprise, in the last election, men of all types, all like across the board, like any kind of way you want to dissect the population up, by black, by Latino, by Asian, any way, men swung towards Trump. And the Democrats are like, why did this happen? So they've been conducting all of these surveys, all of these research groups, all of these one-on-one and media examinations to find out what it is. And they're finding out basically what we kind of all know, which is a lot of the men are like, look, some of these people on the right, I don't like, but at least they're saying the truth and they're not backing down. So basically it's this idea that being a man means, hey, you say what you're thinking and you don't apologize for it, and there's no space for that in the Democrats. And what was pointed out by a lot of these people, which is very interesting, if you go to the Democratic, their official website, and they say who the Democrats are for, they're for the LGBTQ community, they're for Asians, they're for Native Americans, they're for differently abled. They go through this list, and nowhere on that list is the word men, which is fascinating. And a lot of the men that have been surveyed and talked to say, hey, look, I don't think the Democrats speak for me. I think even though I don't agree with everything that Trump and the Republicans are saying, at least they're saying it. And while Democrats are trying to make everybody feel good about who they are, they're not talking to me about the economic reality that I can't buy a house, I can't go to college. Now, again, if we talk about this with nuance and dissect it, a lot of little things show up, right? Like, it's interesting to hear in all these surveys that over and over and over again, men who have been talked to feel like the Democrats left them behind, but when they drill into the message, they agree that the Democrats are more truthful, which is fascinating. When they drill into the message over and over and over again, people will say, yeah, Joe Rogan is a dick, but at least he doesn't apologize, right? So there's some weird message there about masculinity that is deeper than just politics. But again, the reason why they're doing this, there was like a 15 percentage point swing from the last election to this election, where Asian men, African American men, white men all swung towards Trump. And one of the big reasons that they cited like, look, he's talking about no tax on tips. He's talking about being able to buy a home. Now, we know that that's bullshit, and it's not really going to matter in the long run, because Trump is going to fuck them over anyway. But that's what they're hearing. And when you also look at, like, the media studies, guys like Joe Rogan show up a lot in these studies because he is all over the kind of media that men seem to enjoy. For Democrats, there's nobody like Joe Rogan. Maybe someday it'll be the Splain.
Except you and me. This is us.
You and
this
me,
is
baby.
masculinity.
Except
We're
you
men.
and me. This is masculinity.
We are, yes, the return to the liberal male. Okay, a lot of that. It's okay. First of all, I'm in a feeling mood today.
I love it.
It's a lot of what you're saying. Absolutely makes sense. My first reaction is that is all not you, but it's amazing how powerful ignorance is. Men feeling misrepresented, men feeling like they're not being
left behind.
Being left
the
behind.
message
What
isn't
is that?
for them? Yeah.
Right. So I think I
have a
men
feeling
are
I know
being
what you're
left
thinking.
behind.
I look.
Here's
in the
okay. Last night, let me share this real quick.
Yeah.
Last night, I was watching. It's Pride Month. I was watching. I highly recommend it. Harvey Milk, The Times of Harvey Milk. It's a great.
Very much what most men are going to watch
so I'm
on a
man's
Friday night.
man.
Yeah, you're a
So
man's
I sat
man.
back with my gay documentary. Love it.
Yep. Did you have a beer? Maybe an IPA or
no?
did you have
I had
a tea?
a spritzer.
A spritzer, of course. Yeah.
So again, and I'm gonna
Probably
tell you something.
leaning back in the chair too, like that fucking dyke. I can't believe it.
Yeah, see how complicated it. There you go. Dykes and then I'm watching a gay documentary. And by the way, I feel like I am very manly.
You are, damn it.
I sit
you
back
are.
and watch me some Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
Biatch,
Get that milk.
love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So I'm
you're
watching
watching it.
And they were interviewing. This was, so Harvey Milk was the first supervisor elected to the council back in the late 70s. A huge civil rights martyr icon. And so this local news guy was interviewing him right after his win. And this is how people talked in the 70s. He was like, yeah, are you going to represent everyone in your district, Harvey Milk? A lot of people are worried, are the gays taking over right now? And whatever. Harvey Milk didn't take a lot of offense to that. But here's the point. So are the gays taking over after one gets elected? One. So in other words, for a gay man to have any power in politics at all, they're taking over.
Right.
And generally,
look,
I feel that's where men are coming from.
I get it.
If everything doesn't represent me,
Right,
and I cannot talk about tits and ass when I want, how I want, and if you get offended, you're taking it wrong.
Yeah.
Why is everybody taking me wrong? I don't mean
that's my message.
For the most part,
I'm for tits and ass.
Men feel threatened, and I do kind of believe that. That being said, politics is all about messaging, and the Democrats suck.
Yeah,
suck. You suck. Democrats, you listening to me? You suck. Absolutely. Yeah. And in a way, here's the I just figured everything out in case you're interested.
Good. All right, let me lean back.
Here's the irony. It's not that we're trying to make everybody feel good. It's that we do it apologetically and spinelessly. We do it, a little bit of this, but a little bit of that, and we don't mean this. Just do it. Take a stand, right?
Hi, I'm Joe Klosik. I'm running for Democratic office. I'm for it.
There is.
Whatever it is, I'm for it.
Excuse my terminology right now. Absolutely. There is a absolute pussy-assness to Democrats.
All right, Dan Rogan.
It's true.
You're right.
Okay.
The messaging is awful. And I think
that's
both things
actually,
can be true.
If you want to call it the manhood piece we are missing, our current president would put us all in Guantanamo if he could.
Yeah.
If he could get away with it. Yeah. Can you just go after him?
Yeah.
And tell it like it is and call him, if you call him a fascist because he is and stand by it, you might find some men coming around to you. Do you see what I mean? That's the one thing that the T word, I don't like to say his name, the one thing he did, you have to give this to him. He does his thing, he bully, he expanded the electorate to people that didn't used to vote. Granted, I wish they wouldn't vote. These are not people, but do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but he expanded the electorate based on toxic masculinity.
Right.
Which is a term that side of the political divide hates, but it's true.
Let's expand our electorate to pissed off young people that want opportunity and just go there and don't worry about losing our base. That's the thing.
That's where it gets tricky, though, right? Because I think the problem
Democrats... It's very tricky.
The thing that they suffer from is they're trying to be for everything all the time.
Right.
And that sounds to the young people...
So you're trying to be for everything?
Sounds like a politician. And you can't. You can't, and that's difficult. I wonder what's going to happen with that, because I think we're already seeing... we're seeing an argument that's going to come... Because Newsom will run for president, and Newsom is already distancing himself from trans issues.
Right.
He's already stepping away from it, and there's already discussions of like, look, we can't ignore the base. And then other people are pointing out like, well, maybe we can move forward if we just ignore this part. And then people are like, well, if we ignore that part, what do we really stand for? That argument is coming in the next year and a half. It's going to come to a head in the Democratic Party. In the meantime, though, I think there is a valid messaging question on how do you reach disaffected young men. Right. And you're right. Everything that you said about, look, white men have owned everything. And the instant, right, it's pointed out to them that, hey, it's okay for other groups to have a little bit of power, they feel it is like, we're going to lose everything, which is not coming from a healthy place.
I've said this before, and I'll stick with it. This lefty power cancel culture force is not that powerful. It ain't nothing. It's a right wing creation. It's all... Nobody is really telling you what to say and telling... Yes, it's hard to say certain things, but when you look at the influence of the right, those people are in Congress burning books, eliminating curriculum. It's very serious. I was listening to this African-American guy who was for Trump he said this, and I think this goes to a lot of the male vote he gets. He says... he's honest. You know what? I like Trump because he's honest. He's an asshole, and I get it. I listen to him. I go, yeah, you're a prick. I can be a prick too, but at least I know what I'm dealing with. Now, again, what is frustrating from my point of view is, yeah, I get that, but he's dangerous.
You wonder how many...
that. But Democrats... See, here, when you say we're for everyone... You're right. But here's the thing. You can't be for everyone. Democrats are for the whole time Trump is running the show. We're playing his game. Because Democrats are afraid to look... he's been spinning a narrative. Trump's been spinning a narrative that he's the victim, and he's been the victim of the Justice Department.
Right.
And Democrats are playing that game. We don't want to look like that's the truth. You just got to go for it.
Yeah, and I think
live
oftentimes
with the truth and go after it. Go after him unapologetically. And I think you're going to find a lot of men going, okay, this has got a little to it.
Yeah, and oftentimes I think the reply is so simple, and I don't know why. The Democrats just don't say it. When Trump complains about the Justice Department going after him, it's not a witch hunt. It's because you have broken the law.
You have broken the law, and there's this idea of what do they call it? It's like a targeted.
Yeah, and again, it's like he's not being targeted because of his views. Yeah, he's being targeted because he broke the law.
And if you want to be a criminal, don't be the president. That's so. For instance,
or actually, I mean, if you want to be a criminal, be the president. It seems to pay off very nicely.
Be the president if it. It might work. But you're going to be. There's going to be all criminals don't get investigated. If you're really, really famous, you might get investigated.
Well, let me ask you this, and then
Yeah.
let's see if we can put a bow
Tie
on
it all
this.
together, yeah.
Let's see if we can tie it all together. How do you reach a 21-year-old white guy who hasn't been to college, and how do you get that guy to understand that the Democrats are probably going to do more for you economically and socially in the long run than the Republicans? What do you say to the uneducated 21-year-old white guy?
It's a great question. You want to go first? You want to order?
No, actually, you know what? That's the message you say to the 21-year-old
sure-
white
I'm
guy.
not sure.
You want to go first?
I'm not sure what I'm going to order. You go first. I'm
that-
looking at the menu. You go.
I think you just hit it. That's a genius. That's the, Democrats. Hey, you're a 21-year-old white guy? You go first.
Okay, let's take a
that's
moment
the
with
mess-
this. What do you
Okay,
say to
but
them?
I think you have to talk about things that are very relevant to what his world is.
Yeah.
And I think it maybe make it all about the economy. Like,
Yeah.
look, your father bought
But they
a house.
tried.
Your grandfather.
They tried.
They didn't.
Democrats try that, but it doesn't
They
work.
didn't. You know what the Democrats did in the last election? I know
What's
we've
that?
talked about this. They tried to tell people the economy wasn't as bad as people thought
Yeah.
it was. They told them it was in their heads, and that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, but that's
Like,
what the president is doing.
now.
that
I mean,
working?
but that's no, it's not, and he'll pay the price for it down the road. He told them that guy, the T word.
Yeah.
He told them exactly what they wanted to hear. Right? Like, there's going to be no taxes on your tips, and the price of groceries are too high. Day one, I'm going to bring everything down. It was all a lie, and anybody with objective reasoning could see that.
Right.
But,
Okay, but-
but I think with the Democrats, they get stuck in the minutia, and you just have to say, like, listen, the minimum wage always goes up under Democrats.
That's good. That's a good one.
Period, right?
Period.
If you want
Yeah.
access to education, we want to get rid of student loans. The Republicans want to keep it.
Yeah.
Period. Like, just how are you going to prosper?
We want to
And it has
lower.
nothing to-
Yeah, we want
Yeah.
to lower middle class taxes. Period. Not
Period.
upper. And what might be helpful is don't condemn rich people. Americans don't like that.
That's a whole other weird phenomenon.
Young
yeah.
men don't like that because they want to become that.
They want to
Don't-
become rich, and
don't
yeah,
judge.
yeah.
I want to be a
Yeah.
billionaire.
Yeah.
Here's a line I would like to give to Bernie Sanders or a Democrat that I think is genius. If you're listening, okay, I'm not anti-billionaire. I'm pro-billionaire. I want you to become a billionaire.
Nice.
I'm
yeah, there you go.
anti-multi-billionaire to the point we can't do it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm
talking
not
about
anti-billionaire.
wealth
I'm pro-middle
equity.
class.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about creating a wealth equity so you can make $20 million.
And also
and
point out
retire.
to people, like this golden age of America that Republicans seem to embrace, like the 1950s, right? That was when taxes on the richest Americans were at their highest.
Right.
And
Right.
point that out to them. Like, why do we
Yeah.
have the freeway system? Why do we have the infrastructure? How did we afford to go to the moon? It's because the wealthiest Americans paid a fair
So I think
share.
we're getting somewhere. Talk to young men about you. And I guess this is true. Again, I think men. Some of this kind of rubs me the wrong way because it's such a double standardy. It reminds me of in the 80s. I like to think I was raised by a dad that kind of clued me into a little bit of how inequality actually works. And I was here. It's that thing that arrived in the 80s, reverse racism. It's reverse racism. The concept of conflating privileged hurt feelings with actual oppression. It bugs me.
I hear what you're saying.
But
I just also think
we
you
need
have to
the message.
acknowledge.
We need the message.
You need the message, and you have to
yeah.
acknowledge if you're telling a 21-year-old white person who can't find a job
Yeah.
that
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they're not.
We want to create opportunity for you to be your young badass self.
Yeah,
and we want to tax people. We want to tax people that have so much fuck you money that they're just making money after money.
I just got it.
What? Go.
This is the message that we tell, right? We say, listen, you know what Democrats want for all of you young white people who are lost and adrift in society? We want you to make as much money as Elon so you can take as much drugs as possible so you can actually believe that someday you'll go to Mars too. That's what we're for, damn it.
All right. It's a little much, but I like it. If that's what you want to do.
Ketamine for all.
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I know we sound a little touchy-feely liberal, but under our system, you get the pursuit of happiness. You go create anything you want.
There you go.
Because it's fairness, not in a socialist way, in a fair way. Fairness means you have a shingle to hang. Now
fair way. Hang that shingle.
So yes, I agree. Yes, we need messaging. And here's the thing. Let's wrap up on this. I get it. I struggle with this myself because I want to be so progressive and so open-minded. My son right now is dealing with I shouldn't talk about it. Here's the point.
Oh my God. Is this going to be another 15 minutes of I have a point? No.
Here's the thing. I want to talk to my son about what it's like to be a little dude trying to ask girls out. It's tough. It's demoralizing.
Oh, Dan, save it for next week. This is such a great topic.
And as a progressive, you feel like I don't want to insinuate that women are actually in control because that perpetuates a trope that is. Do you know what I mean? I get it. I just want to be a guy talking to my son. It's hard. It's hard. So I get that.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you want me to talk to him, Dan? You want me to have a little sit down with your?
We're not there yet. But I want to go to the thing with the hot towel and the shave. I want to be a man. I'm a man. I love it.
Hot towel and
shave. The hot towel and the shave, and you sit back.
So what are you telling your son to do?
Is that manly, or is that we're still talking about a spa?
Hey, babe, you want to come on over and watch the Harvey Milk doc with me?
Yeah, sit back, watch a little Harvey Milk.
Yeah, we'll have some tea, talk about our feelings. What's up, babe?
Yeah. That's some manly shit as far as I'm concerned. I'll stand by it.
I think you're right.
Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to this
Subscribe!
To this manly...
This manly festival of emotions and empathy and all kinds of... we're just a pinata of feelings.
Mm-hmm. We'll see you next time on the Splain. Subscribe.
See ya!